Well, it's time now for Media Watch, and I'm joined by Olivia Salazar-Winspear. Olivia, good evening to you. And we're starting with more on what's been dubbed on the internet Lochte Gate, the American swimmer in a whole lot of hot water after his appearance at the Olympics.
Lochte Gate, or Lochte Ness, as some people on Twitter have chosen to call it. Yes, the swimmer Ryan Lochte has now admitted that, in fact, he wasn't robbed at gunpoint in Rio. He was actually drunk and disorderly. But that account comes from his teammates who were in Rio and questioned by Brazilian police because he left the games before they did, which has also been seen in the media as a bit of a perhaps cowardly move, leaving his younger teammates to face the music, as it were, after he vandalised a service station bathroom and he was asked by a security guard to pay for the damage caused to the private property. Now, this apology came on his Twitter feed, and it does bring to mind that old hashtag, sorry, not sorry, because it's lukewarm, to say the least. It says, I want to apologise for my behaviour last weekend, for not being more careful and candid in how I described the events of that early morning. So he apologises for his description of events, that is, for falsely claiming that he was robbed to the police, which is quite serious, reporting an assault. And the bogus account of his assault is miraculously still up on the internet, on his Twitter feed from last Sunday, which I'm very surprised he hasn't deleted. He says, while it's true that my teammates and I were victims of a robbery early Sunday morning, which has now become, it's been revealed that it's not true. The mayor of Rio, Eduardo Paes, has told Brazilian media that he feels nothing but pity and contempt for these swimmers. Obviously, it's a terrible indictment of the security situation in Rio, and it's a very sensitive issue. This whole incident brings up a very sensitive issue for Brazilians, that is the security and violence situation in the city in preparation for
because
these
this
games.
wasn't the only claim of violence, of crimes against Olympic athletes.
And claims that were true, of course, in other cases. And, tackling crime rates in a city like Rio for Brazil was key before these games. So the New York Times, of course, are talking about how this fuels tension in Brazil and also tension between the North Americans and the South Americans in what other editorials have named as a kind of the gringo on spring break phenomenon, this kind of irresponsible behaviour with no accountability for what kind of things people are doing because they are not in their own homes. They're kind of
But he's not even that young. I mean, people talked about his kind of bro behaviour, but we're not talking about a frat boy. We're not talking 18, 20, 22. He's 32 years old, I believe.
Years old. And the frat boy tag, exactly like you say, has been thrown around. And editorials have said this does not apply anymore to someone like him, or it certainly shouldn't apply. There's an op-ed in the Huffington Post, actually, which makes a very interesting comparison, and it brings up this idea of white male privilege. Now, the journalist here writing, she's a women's issues editor, she compares the treatment given to Ryan Lochte, which she describes as a kind of compassionate, benevolent, kids just trying to have some fun and they made some mistakes attitude, as opposed to what Gabby Douglas has suffered at the hands of social media, specifically for not putting her hand on her heart during the national anthem. But also, she's been victim of serious, let's be frank, racial slurs. Her appearance has been criticised. Now, this is a 3 times gold medal winner who has not committed any crime or damaged anyone's property.
And to be fair to her, she's holding a statue, a little plaque there in her hand. So it's not as though she's standing there doing nothing with her hands. She's holding something.
And she's not really made any statements that would say that she's unpatriotic. Now, the whole situation has been summed up by this cartoon. This is Ryan Lochte, his attitude towards the games in Rio, and of course a much more light-hearted response from Twitter here on Lochte's performance. Lochte's fastest time was getting out of Brazil because he certainly got out before he was questioned by the police. And there's this other one which I found quite entertaining because it's my favourite sport. Synchronised swimmers would keep their story straight, unlike Lochte and his teammates.
Absolutely, don't mess with the synchronised swimmers. Next we're moving to Egypt, where there's been quite a row over some female television presenters there.
Yes, 8 presenters from the Egyptian radio and television unit network have been suspended for 1 month, and that's because their new boss has deemed them to be too overweight. She's given them 1 month to lose weight and then come back to the channel. Now, the woman was brought in, this new boss, to overhaul the channel and give it a new image, but this decision was quickly relayed in the international press, and it's come in for huge criticism, especially from feminist websites like Jezebel, who are really questioning why this is happening at all. One of the presenters, Khadija Khattab, who we can see there on screen, gave interviews to various papers saying that she won't lose the weight and she feels completely humiliated by this decision, and she wanted viewers to watch her recent screen appearances to judge for themselves whether she was too fat to do her job, because this idea of whether you can carry out your professional activities is, of course, at stake here. And the women's rights group, this has got a very long name, this feminist group, Centre for Guidance and Legal Awareness, based in Cairo. They've condemned the decision, posting a message on their Facebook page saying it's sexist, they're in full solidarity with the women involved, and that it's unconstitutional to make a decision based on appearance and not professional competence, which is...
Although it's not that unusual in television, decisions are made based on how people look on a regular basis.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because there are other defenders from Egyptian media of the decision. Nile Television, for example, state-run media, have said that it's important to reform, to modernise the state of television, and the rules should apply to men as well. Men shouldn't be allowed to become overweight on television. On social media, the response in the Arabic-speaking world has been overwhelmingly condemning. Plenty of reactions of people saying, basically, this tweet reads, we're trying to get women on screen to expose their bodies, not their ideas. That's really disappointing. It's really low standards, and we expect more.
Olivia Salazar Winsmith, thank you very much indeed. Very interesting Media Watch tonight.